on first down. They hand off to Marlon Mack. Huge hole, 50-yard line. He's at the 40, still going near sideline. He's at the 10. He's at the 5, and he will score. Touchdown, Marlon Mack. Touchdown, I-N-D-Y. And again, it's picked off. It's Darius Leonard. Leonard with a second INT, and he's streaking down the near sideline. He's at the 40. He's at the 30. He's at the 20. He's going to go. A pick six for the Maniac.
Horseshoe is back, baby. The horseshoe is back.
What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to the Bring the Juice Colts podcast. Today, we had a little bit of an improvised video here for you today. We wanted to talk to you guys about a specific player that we have seen so far through the first 3 days of training camp that has looked really, really good, okay? And if you guys haven't seen the video that Cody just did a few days ago about what players need to have a really good training camp to provide some kind of feedback on how they're going to make this roster, go check that out because this is one of the guys in here. Now, the player we're going to discuss today is Tyquan Lewis, the 2018 second-round draft pick that the Colts put in, came into the NFL with an injury right off the bat, right? Came in, had an injury, did not start right away, and then came back 2018, had 2 sacks in a game against the Cowboys, looked like he was about ready to rise up to where we thought he could be, and then nothing looked the same. And now we were saying he might not make this roster if he doesn't do well. And now through the first 3 days, the Indianapolis media has been talking a lot about Tyquan Lewis and how he looks different. He just looks different out on the field. There's a couple different things that we can mention that he's going to do it. Cody has some thoughts. Cody, why don't you tell us a little about what Tyquan Lewis has been doing so far?
Absolutely. So during this offseason, Tyquan Lewis really made a considered effort to really get himself back in football shape. Well, back into where he was at Ohio State when he was a really, really good player on that defensive line. He mentioned he worked this entire offseason to get his body right and also his mental state right. And I kind of made the comment, I know that he hasn't said it, but it's got to be wearing on Tyquan Lewis from the last couple seasons. It's got to be tough on him mentally, to come in with that high a pedigree and then to really not make an impact, to not be on the field, just dealt with injuries throughout his first couple seasons. I mean, it's really got to be tough on Tyquan Lewis mentally. I know if I was in his position, I would probably have been struggling those first couple of years. It would have been really a really tough mental state for him, but it seems like he just took time to really get in a really good place, and it's showing. It's really showing. Tyquan Lewis has been mentioned in beating Quentin Nelson. We would consider the best offensive lineman in the game. He's been beating him on one-on-ones, which is absolutely wild and certainly great for Tyquan Lewis. I don't think it's a shot at Quentin Nelson. I think it's just great for Tyquan Lewis to be able to do that so far. Now, obviously, we still have to see what happens in game action and also, in more so offense versus defense, kind of more team-oriented type of things. But certainly has been a great sign for Tyquan Lewis early on. And he also mentioned new Colts defensive line coach Brian Baker, right? He came in this year. It certainly seems like Tyquan Lewis and Brian Baker have a great relationship so far. And it certainly seems like Brian Baker understands Tyquan Lewis a lot more than the former defensive line coach. So I think the combination of Lewis taking the offseason to do that and also his great relationship with Brian Baker, right? The Colts have talked about how they want to have guys who are teachers in there as their coaches. Brian Baker is one of those guys. I actually was talking to George Bremer a little while ago, and he was talking about, Brian Baker's just such an energetic guy, right? He's such an animated character as a defensive line coach. And I think maybe that's just something that Tyquan Lewis needed. He needed a guy that was in his corner. He believed in him, and he knew that he was going to support him fully. And it definitely seems like Baker fully has his back and understands and kind of has given Tyquan Lewis a new motivation mentally, because he has it physically. He does. I think it's just a mental game with Tyquan Lewis. It certainly seems like he's in a lot better place mentally. And I really am hoping for Tyquan Lewis's sake that he can really develop into a nice rotational piece this year. I really think he has all the talent in the world. Obviously, he won't be a starter at that 3 technique position, but I think he can contribute really well. And I'm really excited to see what Tyquan Lewis can continue to do. Right now, we've seen flashes. Now it's about consistency. Tyquan Lewis, you've had 2 really good days of practice. Continue to build and build and build on that, and continue to, be the type of player that the Colts thought they had when they drafted you in the second round.
Yep.
It's time for you to stop being potential and start being talent. That's kind of my thoughts on Tyquan Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely nailed it. I mean, this guy, he looks just like he's in better headspace now, and it's great to see. People forget just how important a confidence in a player does for them. It really does. I mean, he's been hurt so much. What happens when this kind of thing happens, right? You have a guy who consistently gets injuries, right? It doesn't just take its toll on your body. It takes a toll on your psychological factors and what it makes you think you can do as a player. That's what it does. And then because then when you start questioning yourself, then the coaches start questioning you, right? I mean, obviously that becomes a thing. So I'm not 100% sure on it, but I'm willing to take a bet that there was a couple weeks during this offseason where Tyquan spoke with the executives of the Colts and had a thing where he just was able to clear his mind of all the baggage from 2018, 2019. They said, forget about it. That you can't get those years back. This is now. This is what we need you to be right now. In order for you to make this roster, this is what you need to be. And Tyquan said, okay, I have to get rid of it. Forget about the past. Let's focus on making me a better player now. And he said it. I've been getting my body in shape, much better shape now than what he was. And it just seems like it's returned him to the player that we drafted him on. So it's really nice to see that 3 days in, he's been the most complimented Colt on the entire roster so far from coaches. He's been the number one compliment that Tyquan Lewis has been the most improved and has been the most outstanding player that has really popped for everyone on the scene. So really, really cool to see. Really awesome to see Tyquan doing this.
And speaking of confidence, you think of another second-round pick that also had a talking to. I mentioned this, Quincy Wilson. That was a thing he lacked. He could not let a play go. He could not let a bad game go. It seems like it was up and down with him. It was a roller coaster with Quincy Wilson. He would have really good games. Like last year, he shut down Travis Kelce. Then what happens? He's a non-factor the rest of the season because he had a bad play or a bad game at some point after that. He could not let it go. He was a young player. I know he's still got room to grow and room to learn, but that was the issue with him. He couldn't let it go. It definitely seems like Tyquan Lewis is on the right track to not go down that similar road. So I'm going to say it here, Derek, right here and right now. I believe in Tyquan Lewis. Tyquan Lewis, I hope you're listening to this podcast because I have stood on a table for you. I believe in you. I believe in you. I think that you're going to have a great season.
I really am liking what I'm seeing, man. I really hope he does prove us wrong. We've been one of the bigger critics out there. We have continued to say we don't know if he's going to make this roster. And, I mean, so far through 4 days of full pads, he's proven us wrong so far. We're going to hope it continues to do that. So, guys, let us know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with us? What do you think of what Tyquan Lewis has done so far? What do you think? Is he going to make this roster? Do you think that he needs to improve even more? What's your guys' thoughts been on the first few days of practices and what he's done? So thank you guys so much for Cody and myself. And as always, go Colts.